Welcome to Concrete Block, your go-to source for in-depth analysis and discussion of the latest news and current events. I'm your host, Walter, and we're glad you're joining us today. We're starting off with a story that's been making waves globally, as tensions between Ukraine and Russia continue to escalate. The conflict has been ongoing for years, with both sides suffering significant losses. Recently, there have been efforts to negotiate a peaceful resolution, but so far, no agreement has been reached. One of the key players in these negotiations is Steve Witkoff, an American businessman who has been acting as a diplomatic intermediary between Ukraine and Russia. However, his approach to diplomacy has been criticized by many, with some accusing him of being too soft on Russia and its leader, Vladimir Putin. According to reports, Witkoff's diplomacy has spectacularly failed, but he is likely to continue playing a major role in the negotiations. This has raised concerns among many Ukrainians, who fear that any deal brokered by Witkoff may not be in their country's best interests. Meanwhile, European Council President Antonio Costa has stated that the process of making Ukraine a member of the European Union needs to move forward. Costa emphasized that Europe must be part of any future peace negotiations, alongside Ukraine, Russia, and the United States. He also highlighted the importance of providing security guarantees for Ukraine, which could include reinforcing the country's armed forces. It's worth noting that the situation on the ground in Ukraine remains complex and volatile. The conflict has resulted in significant human suffering, with thousands of civilians caught in the crossfire. Any resolution will need to take into account the needs and concerns of all parties involved. As we continue to follow this story, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives and avoid taking a biased approach. We'll be keeping a close eye on developments and providing updates as more information becomes available. We'll be right back with more of today's top news on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. We're taking a deep dive into the complex world of international relations, specifically focusing on the tumultuous relationship between Iran and the United States. Today, we're examining the historical context and recent developments that have led to increased tensions between these two nations. To set the stage, let's go back to the early 2000s when the Iranian nuclear program became a major point of contention. The international community, led by the U.S., expressed concerns over Iran's intentions, fearing it was pursuing nuclear weapons. This led to a series of negotiations, culminating in the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, in 2015. However, the agreement was met with skepticism and eventually withdrew from it in 2018. Since then, tensions have escalated significantly. The U.S. has reimposed economic sanctions on Iran, while Tehran has responded by increasing its uranium enrichment activities. The situation took a dramatic turn when Iran decided to back Russia's invasion of Ukraine, further straining relations with the West. Meanwhile, Israel has been actively targeting Iranian proxies in the region, adding another layer of complexity to the conflict. Now, some argue that the U.S. and Iran are at a crossroads where diplomacy could be the key to preventing further escalation. The Biden administration has shown willingness to engage in talks, but the challenge lies in building trust between the two nations. Iranian leaders are wary of making concessions, given the history of broken promises and sanctions. On the other hand, some experts believe that the U.S. needs to take a more nuanced approach, acknowledging Iran's legitimate security concerns and addressing its own role in perpetuating the cycle of violence. They argue that a comprehensive agreement would require not only limitations on Iran's nuclear program, but also a broader framework for regional stability. As we navigate this intricate landscape, it's essential to consider multiple perspectives and avoid simplistic solutions. The stakes are high, with potential consequences ranging from a nuclear arms race to all-out war. Yet, despite the challenges, there is still hope for a diplomatic breakthrough. The question remains, can the U.S. and Iran put their differences aside and work towards a mutually beneficial agreement? Or will the cycle of mistrust and hostility continue to dominate their relationship? The answer, much like the situation itself, is complex and multifaceted. Stay tuned for our final story of the day, right here on Concrete Block. Welcome back to Concrete Block. As we wrap up today's show, I want to dive into a complex and sensitive topic that's been making headlines around the world. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict has been a long-standing issue, with both sides having deeply rooted concerns and needs. Recently, tensions have escalated, with various countries weighing in on the situation. We've seen reports of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese being accused of appeasing Hamas by Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. This comes after Australia denied a visa to a sitting member of the Knesset, Simcha Rothman, due to his views and comments about Gazan children being enemies of Israel. It's essential to approach this topic with nuance and understanding. On one hand, Israel has the right to defend itself against terrorism and ensure the safety of its citizens. On the other hand, the Palestinian people have the right to self-determination and statehood, as recognized by the international community. The situation is further complicated by the cancellation of visas for Australian representatives in the occupied West Bank and Netanyahu's letter to world leaders, including Albanese, criticizing their support for a Palestinian state. The letter alleges that this support emboldens Hamas and encourages anti-Semitism. As we navigate this complex issue, it's crucial to prioritize empathy and understanding. We must recognize the humanity and dignity of all individuals involved, regardless of their nationality or background. It's also important to acknowledge the historical context and the deep-seated emotions that drive this conflict. As we strive for a peaceful resolution, it's essential to promote dialogue, compromise, and cooperation between all parties involved. This includes supporting initiatives that foster economic development, education, and cultural exchange, which can help build bridges between communities. In conclusion, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a multifaceted issue that requires a thoughtful and balanced approach. As we move forward, it's vital to prioritize empathy, understanding, and cooperation, while also acknowledging the complexities and challenges that lie ahead. That's all for today's Concrete Block. Remember to like, share, and subscribe, and until next time, stay informed.